Hi everyone, welcome to Craft Addict K. It's Carla. I am going to give this a try as our first stitch with me and see how it works. Hopefully it will work out. I did this video earlier to put it out earlier in the month and my setup was completely wrong and I videoed, but it was nowhere where I was stitching at. So I'm trying this as a different setup. I'm hoping it works. Please let me know in the comments below if it's too close, different things you may want to talk about, and I will see what I can do. I want to sprinkle a few of these in during the month, especially when I'm stitching and feeling talky or chatty, because maybe some of you would appreciate all the chattiness that I have to offer. So I'm going to try to remember. I probably won't remember everything I said in my last video when I tried this, but we're just going to go with it. So we are working on Magic Study today. This is a Heaven and Earth design, originally put out as a limited edition. And let me just look here. When I purchased it, it was a limited edition. I understand it is back out now, so anybody can purchase it. If you go to Heaven and Earth, you will, and search Magic Study, it should come up for you. And we're gonna start. So I park my threads. You can see I kind of do a stair-step method. I use 25 count easy grid, and I'm stitching with one of my park threads and see what I can talk about. So on Samantha and I's last video, I mentioned, let me know if there's anything you would like to know, because I'm not typically somebody that chats. I get on Zoom and I'm usually quiet. I might, speak up every now and then and say something, but for the most part, I just sit quietly and stitch and listen to everybody else. We did have someone from England, and I apologize, I had all this down for my last video and I don't know what I did with the paper, was asking about, because we were talking about Samantha had made lasagna, and they were asking about what lasagna noodles were, because in England they use lasagna sheets, and I think I'd much rather use a lasagna sheet from the sounds of it. But a lasagna noodle is basically just that. It's about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches wide, and probably 6 to 8 inches long. And you boil them and like you would spaghetti, and then you layer it in between your meats and cheeses into like a baking casserole, and then you bake it, and there's your lasagna. So I wanted to bring one and be able to show it, but we don't have any. Again, we don't have any in the cabinet. I checked before coming upstairs, and there's no lasagna noodles in the house. So, Rachel's got a friend staying with her this week. He's on vacation from the military, and she's getting ready to deploy to England, or not England, I'm sorry, Egypt in June. Rachel's my middle daughter. So he wanted to be sure, they've been friends for a long time, and he wanted to be sure to say his goodbyes before she left. They have the same, they call it an MOS, it's their same job in the military. And so they have a lot of common things that they like. So they went out rucksacking, which means basically a big old heavy backpack, for lack of a better term, and they went out into the trails around us and went hiking. And now that they're back from their hiking excursion, they're going to go out to the local bar and grill and get some dinner. And I thought, I'm going to take this time and I'm going to give this another try. So I do this. This is Jessie Marie's method. I don't claim it. I saw her. I watched how she did it. And, the last video I did where I was recording in the wrong area, I actually had a restart. I am in no new starts, but I did a restart of one of my projects. And I held off on doing it till I did the stitch with me so I could kind of talk through how I start a full coverage piece, because if you follow me, you know I enjoy full coverage. There's not a lot of counting to be done in full coverage unless you're going cross country, and I don't go too far out of my squares. I kind of stay in my zone, and what you see me doing here is I'm just basically filling in where I parked this, and I'm trying to finish this 10 by 10 square. Sometimes I'll drop down and pick up a stitch. Sometimes I just keep going back and forth. I do full crosses, so you'll see that in my stitching. I don't flip my work over whenever I finish off threads. That's why you'll see, like, here is a thread that's just like a little nubby. When I fill this box, I'm trying to look at what you're seeing here. When I fill this box, I'll trim that little thread off so it won't be there anymore. And by filling this box, I'm essentially covering the thread that goes across behind it, because this thread I went in here, but I actually stitched it over here in this box. So this area here, as I fill it in, will secure all of those threads. So I hope that made about as much sense as mud. I encourage you to watch Jessie Marie. She does have 2 tutorials out on how she does her stitches and how she starts it. And she goes very in depth into explaining it. I may try to do a better job of explaining it next time. I just, you know, this is a challenge piece. I wanted to do my daily 30, and I thought, let me just try and do daily 30, do a little 30-minute, you know, stitch with me, see how that goes, see if you guys like it, tell you a little bit about me. So what can I tell you about me? Oh, I have 3 daughters and 3 grandchildren. I have a granddaughter and 2 grandsons. My oldest daughter is happily married with her husband. I think they've been together for a long time. I don't even know how many years it's been. I'll have to ask her that next time I see her. I know I'm thinking it's right around 7 or 8 years now. But they're happily married, and I can't ask for more than that. And he is a very doting father. And the kids are really good. And they're too little yet. One's fairly newborn. And the other 2, one is, I want to say she's 6 now, and the other one is 4. So, you know, they're still young. COVID has really impacted my visiting with them because I am a nurse. And we've had COVID at work, and, you know, I think it's definitely in our communities. So I limited contact until recently. I did get vaccinated. I was in the military. I know I'm not pro or against vaccinations. I just, you know, I had enough things shot into my arm when I was in the military. I figured, what's another thing that I don't know what it is going in? But it, you know, it doesn't prevent you from getting COVID. It does help protect you so that you don't get as severe as symptoms. You know, it's kind of like why they encourage the flu vaccine, because it'll help so the symptoms aren't as severe. So since I've gotten that, and the people around me have also gotten their vaccine, it's made me a little bit more comfortable about being around people. I went and being around people a little bit more, I guess, even with the mask, you know, because I want to protect them. I don't want to take I would just not be able to forgive myself if I took anything to my grandchildren. So that's how I got down that rabbit hole. My husband and I have been married 24 years now. I say that like it's a question. We were married in January of 97. I'm not very good. He remembers such things more so than I do. He's from Puerto Rico. He was also military, and we met in Germany. And it's quite a whirlwind story, but basically, within 3 days, he proposed, and within the month, we were married. I know, unreal. And that was 25 years ago. Some of the people we're stationed with were taking bets as to how long our marriage would last. And I think we've done all of them, so that's okay too. Happy. He keeps me on my toes. He works at the local hospital. I work at a home health agency that's local for us. And yeah, Samantha's a senior this year. She graduates from high school on June 4th. She was accepted to all 3 colleges she applied to. But the one she's most excited about is our local community college. She wants to go into accounting. That's what she wants her major to be, but she wants to get those prerequisites out of the way more cost effectively. Of course, she's always been aware of the almighty dollar and kind of monitoring expenses. You know, she gets birthday gifts, and I don't think she's ever spent any of her birthday money. I think she pretty much keeps it all in the bank. I remember when we first talked to her about putting money in the bank, she wasn't about that. She wanted to keep it under her mattress, in her piggy banks, right close at hand. And, you know, it took some convincing to get her to open up a savings account and put her money into a savings account. And now she says, okay, I've got enough. I need to go to the bank whenever we go. So my middle daughter, the one that's going to Egypt, has been paying her to dog sit for her while she's been away at drill. She is in the National Guard, and she's getting attached to a unit. So what I'm going to do here, because my thing is getting short, I'm just going to kind of pop this down here. Oops, sorry, in that box. So I will have that little tag right here. And then whenever I stitch in this box, I'll trim that. Yeah, so let me mark this off in my pattern keeper so I don't forget where I am. These couple, I'm going to see if I can point without, where are we at here? These couple right here are left in this box, but that thread is actually parked up here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick those up when I make my next pass down. I'll pick these couple of stitches up with this thread that's already parked. So instead, what I'm going to do is move into a fresh box, and I'm going to come down to this box, and I'm going to start. Let me move here. So in Jessie Marie's method, what she recommends is you take your threads that are for that box, and I move everything else kind of out of the way, off to the side, and you take your threads, and this is a good example, and you pick up and you work from the bottom up. So you pick your threads up, and whatever is down here at the bottom, you're going to use. Like these are all up on top. So I would stitch from my outermost one and stitch in those. Then move to the next one and stitch in those. Sometimes what I'll do is I will pick one that's got the least amount of stitches, and I'll stitch that, because then the ones with the most amount of stitches will help to secure it, if that makes sense. So like if I came down to this bottom box, because this one's only got one thread parked, so let me move that out of the way. So if I came down to this bottom box, this is a better example. I have 4 threads. You can see them right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're at different levels. So when I pick up my threads, I'm going to take this bottom one, and that's the one I would stitch with. Because when I park it in the first box from the top down that takes that thread. So by picking the bottom one to actually stitch, it's telling me that I shouldn't have any stitches above that thread. They should all be on that row or below. So you might not get that the first couple of times, you know, but watching it and you know, when I did the other video that didn't record the right way, I really took time to explain that, but it's hard to do that with already parked threads. So for example, in the block that I'm in, this, let me see here, this thread on the outside goes down almost the whole length of the block. It's most of the stitches. So I'm going to kind of set that aside and hold that off for later. The next one over has a few stitches in it, but I think I'm even going to set this one aside a little bit for a second. And then this next one only has one stitch in this whole box. So I'm going to go ahead and use that stitch. Let me get my threads threaded here. I'm going to go ahead and stitch that one and then see if there's any place in the neighboring box. By the way, I don't know if you use a threader. This is a wonderful threader. Ignore my nails. I'm awful to my hands, you can tell. But this is a wonderful threader. It's from Heaven and Earth Designs. This was gifted to me from a fellow stitcher. I'm trying to see if I can get the camera to focus on it and not my finger. But how you use it is you simply, there's a little hoop. See, there's a hoop, if you can see that. There we go. So there's a hoop, and you put that hoop through your needle, eye of your needle, just like this. And then you take your thread that you want, and you put the thread also in that hoop, okay, like that. And all you do is take and pull your needle off, and now your needle is threaded. It's a pretty handy tool, and I use it periodically. Sometimes I'm a thread licker, sometimes I use that. I'm going to do this one thread. Let me mark that one, make sure. Yep, okay. So I'm going to put this one thread. It's the only one in the box, in that box anyway. And I go left, bottom left, top right, bottom right, top left. That's kind of how I do my stitches for the most part, as long as my legs match up. And then when I look down, I see that the next place that this is used is actually right here. So see where that's at? And so since I always start my threads in the bottom left, I'm going to park my needle and park this thread in the bottom left. So I know which one that is, because it's when I get to that box, that's the thread I will use in that box. So plus I will mark it that I parked it on my pattern, which also helps. If you do paper patterns, okay. Let's see. If you do paper patterns, I think I'm going to actually start a thread. I'm just throwing all the rules out, aren't I? Only because this one has a few stitches and it's clear on the inside. And I think if I start, I know. If I go ahead and start that thread now, the other threads that are parked will be stitching over top of it, and it'll just give it more security. When you do these things, there's no right or wrong way. It's just doing one stitch at a time and whatever you're comfortable with. And I've changed how I do these a couple of different times over. So I just do what makes sense to me. And I know my stitching and how I stitch. And so that's kind of led me to like, okay, well, there's only a couple and they're all on this edge over here. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch that. And then I can use these threads in that box to go ahead and secure my needle or my threads. So how I do this, and this is Jessie Marie's way, is she would, since she's stitching in this box, she would skip this box, go down in this side over here. So that's what we're going to do. Anywhere you want, there's no right or wrong. I leave a little tail, okay? I hold my finger on that tail because that helps me to secure it so I don't pull it all the way through. Sometimes I do anyway. I try not to, but I just hold that tail, come up in the left, go down in the top. Well, helps if I put it in the top. Sorry if I bumped you. My setup, I can see you on top and I'm trying to see me underneath. Then I come up down here. And now when I have this top part in, that is basically secured because I have this stitch in there. It locks it in place. And then I just start going down. I don't like to thread and rethread needles, so I do all of them that I can with that thread before I change. If you'll see like little sprinklings down here, that's because my thread was almost empty. And then rather than park it, if it gets down low, I just go ahead and fill in whatever stitches I can. You can call it a feather. It's an unintentional feather. That's what I'll call it, an unintentional feather. And that's what I do to use up my thread and not have a lot of, because if I see a little piece like this, I know that those are ones that need trimmed. Whenever I get there, I'll trim them. I hope what I'm saying and what I'm doing is making sense, because I watched a lot of Stitch With Me videos with full coverage and parking and trying to figure it out until I finally one day just said, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And I think once I do it, I'll understand it. And once I did it, I did understand it. It made sense. The key is always putting it coming up in the same corner, always parking in the same corner. So you always know what that stitch is, no matter what. Another thing that helped me when I was doing paper is I would highlight the parked stitch in a different color than the stitch, than the color I highlighted that I stitched. So usually I picked a light color, like a yellow, and then I would use that to identify my part threads, and then I would go back and use maybe an orange or a blue that would cover up the yellow whenever I actually stitched it when I was on paper. Now that I have Pattern Keeper, paper is history. I don't want to work with paper if I don't have to. My non-full coverages, I do use paper, and maybe I'll do a Stitch With Me with a non-full coverage one time. I don't typically park threads unless I think that, okay, I know it's over in this area somewhere, and I'll just put the thread over there if it's going to be obvious. Whoop, I went into the wrong hole again. That's where it should be. And yeah, I don't know what I was talking about. All right, so now I've gone down here. I'm gonna be in the next box. So instead of continuing on, so I can show you, I'm just gonna park it. So where the next X is gonna be is right here beside it. Now normally I could just keep on going if I wanted, but for sake of this, I'm gonna just go ahead and park it right there, because that's my next box. I'm going to go ahead and mark these all off that I stitched. And this is a little bit of a different kind of flow to the pattern, because I think this is a drape, and we'll insert a picture in, but I think this is a drape, and that's why it looks kind of, everything's kind of going in that direction. So I'm just going with it and going in that direction. Here we go. So I'm just moving over to the next one. Now, if this was a pattern that had everything kind of scattered all over, again, I'd just probably start with whatever's on the bottom of my threads in that box. And then from there, I would pick whatever's the least amount as the box kind of thins up, especially if there's a lot of colors parked. I tend to do that. And somebody told me I'd ask for suggestions. By the way, if you haven't watched our last video, I highly encourage you to do so, because we do giveaways periodically, and I want to get back into doing more giveaways. I'm trying to do, with Samantha's school schedule, it's been harder for us, so we've just been doing monthly roundups, but I have done so many projects that in a month, sometimes it's hard to wait it out, because I keep them in a separate area, and they kind of start to implode on me because they're sitting here waiting for me to do a video and show progress. Sometimes, like here, it's a little tight. I might go down in the bottom right and just push my thread down into the top left. As long as my last leg is on top, that's kind of silly. I guess they'd always be on top, right? But as long as the last leg is there, let me see where I'm at here. Okay. I kind of got lost at where I was at. Then I always make sure that that bottom leg is going in the same, or the top leg is going in the same direction. I don't know that it makes a difference. That's kind of a golden rule if you want to say that there's rules in cross stitch, but you know, I don't know if that's the end all be all rule or what, but it does make your project end results much more cohesive if your crosses aren't fighting against each other to see who's on top. Hope that makes sense. I hope I make any kind of sense. So, you know, just ramble. My phone's dinging. Let's see, what else can I tell you? My husband's been he used to work every other weekend, and he's got a new manager, so now he doesn't work every other weekend. So it's impacted my stitchy time, and not liking that so much, but he likes to go outdoors, and he likes to go hiking and fishing and trying to get more active, work on a healthier lifestyle. You know, he hit 50 this year, big 50. I'm in my 40s, we'll just say that. We won't say any more about that, but he wants to keep us around for another 50 years. And he thinks that doing all that extra stuff will be the key to longevity. I don't know. Might be the key to an early grade for me. Some days I come back and I'm like, holy cow. That was a little bit over the top much to be going and doing, but you know, I should be happy. He likes to spend time with me, which is nice. Just different. You know, but I'm glad that he enjoys spending time with me. He won't stitch though, but he does tie flies, which I taught him. I used to tie flies myself, so I kind of got him into it. Got him into fishing too when we were much younger. So now he says it's my fault that he wants to go do all these things because I taught them to him. I don't know about that, but he does a pretty good job tying his own flies, and he's caught some on his own flies, just we haven't caught anything recently. We really have just kind of been dinking around in the water. For the most part, it's been too cold. Not a lot going on as far as bug life. Oh, EJ had suggested on our last video, I was talking about that, and I kind of got sidetracked. She had suggested doing a Know Your Cross Stitcher tag. And I thought, well, that's kind of a good idea, but I didn't print a tag. I didn't look for a tag. So maybe if this works out, maybe I'll do a tag next time. These two that I'm doing here were 2 stitches that were left before because I had a thread part similar to what I did up here. These were from the previous box, but now I'm down here with this thread. I'm just going to go ahead and take care of them. So my biggest piece of advice is there's no right or wrong. If you're worried about doing a full coverage, just try it. It's the part I like about a full coverage is I don't have to count. I don't have to count spaces. I don't have to count stitches. If I just focus on that 10 by 10 little piece right there, then I can get all my stitches done, and I'm not too worried about it. Because it's, you know, if you miss a stitch, it's obvious if you miss a stitch, and you don't have to count over spaces to get to another stitch. So right now I've just got a little piece left of this thread, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to keep plugging this thread in down here in this box and see how far I can get. Let's see, so I know, see, breaking the rules. if you're not breaking the rules, are you really trying? Somebody said that to me once. It was probably my daughter, that's Rachel, that's always, I always said to my husband, she will probably be the one we have to bail out of prison one day, just because she's always doing something. And she's so comical about it, but she's always, she's my social butterfly, always into something, always doing something, just never stops. And I was looking at some older family videos from when she was little, and I was laughing because she is still the same one now. She's got stories galore all the time. And she likes telling stories too, so I guess that's a win. So my dad came down. We've lived here at least 10 years. I think my dad's probably been to my house maybe 3 or 4 times in that 10 years. He just doesn't, usually there's other people visiting, or he's got other people with him, so he doesn't want to stop. Plus I work full time, and when he's down in my area, I'm usually at work. So I had taken Monday, which was yesterday. By the way, today is April 27th, if you didn't know. And I had taken yesterday off because my sister had knee surgery. And my dad was coming down to our area for a VA appointment. He's a Navy veteran, and he had an appointment. So I said, if you come to my house, I will make you the best potato soup you have ever had. And he came. So I made him potato soup in our Instapot, and it's so good. And he said it was really good. He took some home with him. There was very little leftovers. Whoop, I'm getting down to the nubbies here. Very little leftovers. So you can see, I'm going to put one more stitch right here, because that will be a good point to kind of pull my thread. So we had hardly anything left. He took some home, and I think the kids had some for their lunches today, because my husband was looking for some to take to work tonight, and it was gone. So what I do now that I'm to the end is I'm going to skip this box, and I'm going to pull my needle up over in the box beside it. And now I have this little thread, trying to not cover the camera up, but now I'll have this little thread nubby. And whenever I stitch down and I stitch this box, I'll trim that one. When I stitch this box, I'll trim these out. So that was actually pretty good. I got some stitches down that next area. All right, and we're working our way across. I'm going to pull up my next thread, if you're following along. And I'm marking my pattern keeper. We've already put in 77 stitches. How about that? I didn't look at the time. I think we're right, yep, 33 minutes. So let me go ahead and put this in, and then we will save some for the next time. I think my Zoom gals are calling me. That's what you hear my phone dinging. They're saying, hey, it's time to Zoom. So, and I want to get this up today, because tomorrow we're going to do our drawing. If you watched our last video, you saw we're doing 2 giveaways tomorrow. I don't think I made an X with that. That sure didn't look like an X. When in doubt, you know what? There's so many X's on this. Oh, I did. Okay. I was about to say, what did I do differently? I don't know that I came up and went down. All right. Yeah, I did. Losing my mind over here. Anyways, if you follow our video, the last one, we talked about a thread winder. We're giving away 2. Just have to leave a comment on that video. Samantha is going to do the drawing tomorrow after school, before I get home from work, because we are going to do our April wrap-up video tomorrow, because come Friday we're going to go camping, and I don't know that we'll be having Wi-Fi when we're going camping because my husband wants to go fishing. So middle daughter's dog sitting and the rest of us are going out of town for a bit. So if you liked this and listening to me ramble to you for the last 30 minutes, let me know. It'll get better. It was kind of fun for me. Gave me an outlet to talk to you guys, and you know, I've got lots to show when we do our video. We had the riff off this month, so for No New Starts, and I hit a lot of projects with that, so definitely have a lot to show, and I look forward to stitching with you. See you next time. Bye-bye.